I am Generation X. Grew up in the 80s. That was a real fun time to grow up. A lot of fun during that decade. Didn't have all these uptight people offended by everything. In the early 90s and the 90s was when people started getting connected to the internet, we had a lot of offensive humor. We had Chris Rock, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, Andrew Dice Clay. We had Shock Jocks. We had Mancow in the Chicago area. Um, Nothing was off the table. Extremely offensive humor. Nobody got uptight. It just was part of our culture. And in the late 90s, then you have South Park, obviously very offensive. I have no idea how we got from that to now, where so many people are offended about everything. I have no idea where these people came from. I have no idea how this happened. It's absolutely amazing that you can't say all lives matter without people getting all bent out of shape. You can't support the police without people getting upset. This is unbelievable. I'm part of a neighborhood watch page, an internet page, Neighborhood Watch, where the admin supports the police and said our community supports Blue Lives, and people got upset. They demanded that he take the post down. Somebody goes on a rant, and then you see all these likes on it. Where did these people come from? And so this is where the story begins. Terry Crews tweets something that I guess just made too much sense. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill. So good for him. He's standing up to the rage mob. Well, 273,000, almost 274,000 likes on this, but there were people that got so upset that this became a story. And so he went on CNN with Don Lemon, and I'll play that clip. You might have seen it already. But before I do, Terry Crews says that the Black Lives Matter organization isn't just about police brutality. Don Lemon says it is. That's all it is. You can't talk about anything else. That's solely what they're focused on. But let's take a look at the website, uh, Black Lives Matter. First off, here's what it says about the police. We know that police don't keep us safe. So obviously, this is anti-police, and what a stupid statement. Police have kept millions and millions and millions of people safe. They've investigated crimes. They've brought people to justice. They've prevented crimes. Absolutely, the vast majority of police have kept us safe. What an insane statement to make. So we know this is anti-police. We know they're about defunding the police completely, getting rid of the police, which isn't supported by most black people. But let's see what this is about Black Lives Matter, founded in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murder. Okay, so Don Lemon says this organization is all about police brutality. George Zimmerman, who murdered Trayvon Martin, was not a police officer. And in voting, he listed himself as Hispanic. His mother's from Peru, also has some African descent. So he's not a police officer and he's not white. And this is what they were founded on. So this is what they were founded on. Somebody who wasn't a police officer, somebody not white, murdered a black man. Now, obviously, he should not have been acquitted. Based on the evidence, I have no idea how that jury, either they were stupid or crazy, let this guy get away with murder. If I was on that jury, he would have fried. The evidence was unbelievable that he just murdered this guy. And the police, by the way, told George Zimmerman to stay in his car. If he listened to the police, Trayvon Martin would still be alive. Global organization. And so is this just, do they just care about police brutality? Well, look, we affirm the lives of black, queer. It's weird that they use queer. I would think they would use gay. It seems like a more modern term. Trans folks, disabled. So black, queer, and trans folks, disabled folks, all disabled or just black disabled? Undocumented, folks with records, women. It just says women. Is that just black women? Is that all women? And all black lives along the gender spectrum are network centers around those that have been marginalized within. So according to this, they should care about black on black crime. They should care about blacks being murdered in inner cities on higher rates, we would think. But let's also go to what we believe. So 4 years ago, let's get to the interesting stuff here. We make our spaces family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. Well, they're not family friendly if the police aren't there to keep them safe. Look what happened in Seattle's police-free zone. What happens when you take out the police? 2 unarmed young black men in Seattle's police-free zone, 16 and 19 years old, were murdered. How much of that was family friendly? How much of that was safe in Chaz and Seattle's police-free zone? We dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work. That's not the problem. The problem in most of these cases is their father or their children left them alone to raise the kids. The father of their children wound up being a deadbeat dad. In most of the cases, that's why they're working both jobs, because they were unfairly left to raise the kids on their own. The fathers didn't take responsibility. And that's an issue going on in the black community and the white community as well. But when you look at single mothers raising kids, it's a higher percentage in the black community. And if you were able to reverse the trend on that and have more black couples stay together and get married before having kids, that would more than anything raise the black community. They've done studies on this, and then they're absolutely proven the father being in the home is so important. But then that's not what they're for. They're not for strengthening the family. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. What a bunch of meaningless fluff. Confucius said thousands of years ago, the strength of a nation depends on the strength of the family. Strong families are so important. And this kind of nonsense, naive nonsense, that's what Chaz was in Seattle. Oh, we're just going to take care of each other. How did that work out? And this is what they want for the entire country. We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all the world are heterosexual unless he or they disclose otherwise. What does that even mean? And who are they speaking to? Who does this represent? Does that statement represent most black people? He or they? Heteronormative thinking? Or belief that the world, everybody's not gay unless they disclose otherwise? Everybody, anybody with any kind of sense knows a certain percentage of the population is gay. We see the same things with animals. This is normal. Our closest living relatives are chimpanzees and the bonobos. The bonobos are notoriously bisexual. So it's not any surprise that being one of our closest relatives that we have a percentage of humans that are gay and bisexual. We cultivate an intergenerational, so now they're talking about ageism. So when we look at the website, obviously this is a lot more than just police brutality. So Don Lemon is wrong. And let's go ahead and get into that clip. And let me start off just by the title. You can tell that I'm definitely biased towards Terry Crews here. To me, Terry Crews, guy with a big heart that has integrity. The truth means something to him. Don Lemon is just heartless with no integrity. He's just a shameless liar, in my opinion. And I'm going to show this particular clip. Let's see what they have to say.
Oh, when I describe this, when you look in the city of Chicago, there are 9 children who died by gun violence, by black on black gun violence, from June 20th all the way to today. And you're talking about, even with the Atlanta child murders, there were 28 kids who died in 2 years. You're talking about a month, and you have 9 black kids, and the Black Lives Matter movement has said nothing about this.
What does
kind
that
of
have
thing.
to do with equality, though, Terry? I don't understand what that has to do with equality, because listen, there's crime. There are people in those communities those people aren't just being nonchalant about gun violence. I lived in Chicago. There are many people who are working.
Chicago has had this problem for how long? Oh, there's people working on it. And they've been working on it for years. What the hell? It's a war zone. And this year it's getting worse. And he doesn't care. Terry Crews cares about the kid, and all people should care about these kids being murdered. But man, look at Don Lemon. Look at his expression while Terry's talking about these kids being murdered. Unbelievable.
In those communities to try to get rid of the gun violence. The gun culture in this country is prevalent, but I don't understand what that has to do with a movement that's for equality for black people. It's not mutually exclusive. That if you care about equality for black people, that somehow you're going to stop random violence, or unfortunately kids from being shot. It just seems like apples and oranges.
You know, it's not that way. You know, this is the thing, Don. You know, black people need to hold other black people accountable. I said this the same thing. This is the Black America's version of the Me Too movement. If anything is going to change,
By the way, black people need to hold black people accountable. Don Lemon, there's a clip from him 7 years ago where he calls out all the single women raising kids and calls out what a problem that is. And it's basically a road to poverty. And he calls on black men to step up and be more responsible. But man, he's sure not that way now.
We ourselves need to look at our own communities and look at each other and say, this thing cannot go down. And this is the thing too. There are a lot of great people there who are held hostage by people who literally are running these neighborhoods with violence and then claiming that Black Lives Matter. When you look at the parents of these little kids who are saying, hey man, why aren't they speaking up for me too? And then this is what I'm saying. When I look at this whole thing about, you know, it's about who is controlling the narrative. It's got to be all Black Lives Matter. And what's happened is that because I even challenged it, because I even questioned and warned people,
Terry,
I became sick. Like if I told you to wear a mask,
but Terry,
they want to kick you out.
You're a high-profile person. You're writing things out there. You know you're going to get backlash. You know people are going to respond to what you're saying on Twitter. So I don't think you should be surprised by that. I have a skin as tough as an armadillo because of what I do, and I think maybe you should adapt that. But here's what I.
Did you hear what that guy just said? How arrogant and condescending. I develop skin like an armadillo. You might want to try that. Who does this guy think he is? This guy actually thinks he's better. He thinks he's superior. This elitist jerk thinks he's superior to Terry Crews. Okay, Don Lemon, his entire career, newscaster. He could read a teleprompter. That is all he's done. Terry Crews, football player, actor, comedian, television shows, movies, host of America's Got Talent, activist, 5 children, father, husband, bodybuilder. His arms are almost as big as mine. Terry Crews got to where he is on talent. Don Lemon just got lucky. A shameless lying network needed a shameless lying commentator. So here he is. That's all he's ever done. He's only been a commentator, and he thinks he's better than Terry Crews. And it's not about having a thick skin. It's about caring about the truth. It's about having shame when you lie. It's not that Don Lemon's skin is thick. It's that his integrity is so thin. That's what this is. What a condescending thing to say. Unbelievable.
I have to say, the Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality. If you want an
Nope.
all-black
Trayvon Martin was not killed by a police officer. He's lying.
Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not.
What name? Black Lives Matter. That name means all black lives. Maybe if the Black Lives Matter organization only cared about police brutality, maybe they should change their name to White Cops Killing Unarmed Black Men Matter, because they only care, even though that rarely happens. That's where they get their money from. That's where people have their rage, because they stoke it. Even though in the entire year of 2019, there was 10 unarmed black men killed by police officers, 20 unarmed white men killed by police officers, 10 in the entire year. And now we have the city of Chicago in one day where 24 people die. But all the focus, and obviously what happened to George Floyd was beyond horrible. What happened to him. But as horrible as it was, he was one person. And to say that that scumbag that murdered him represents all police officers, how dumb can you be to believe that? The people run around New York saying all cops are bad, ACAB. How stupid are these people? What's happening to this country is just unbelievable.
Not an all-encompassing. So if you're talking about, if someone started a movement that said, cancer matters, and then someone comes in and said, why aren't you talking about HIV? It's not the same thing.
Did he just equate black people to cancer and HIV? Is this the dumbest analogy you've ever heard? We're talking about all black people. Black people that have been the victim of police brutality, black people that have been the victim of black on black brutality. And what about all black people? What about the law-abiding black citizens who love this country? What about all the black people who think that defunding the police is a real stupid idea? How about black police officers? And how about, as Terry Crews says, the thousands of black people dying through gang violence in the inner cities? What about the 2 young black men in the police-free zone of Seattle, unarmed, being murdered? What about their lives?
We're talking about cancer. So the Black Lives Matter movement is about police brutality and injustice in that manner, not about what's happening in black neighborhoods. There are people who are working on that issue, and if you want to start that issue, why don't you start it? Do you understand what I'm saying?
But when you look at the organization, police brutality is not the only thing they're talking about.
I know
That's
that,
right.
but I agree that that's not what the Black Lives Matter movement is about.
This is where he speaks over him, and then
Black Lives Matter is about police brutality.
So this is where Don Lemon speaks over him, and then Terry Crews started having audio issues because, oh man, about to be exposed. Terry Crews is absolutely right. That's not what they're about. Look at their website. That's not what they're all about. And then, oh man, he's about to say the truth. So here's Don Lemon getting desperate. I got to talk over him now and drown him out. And unfortunately, with the mic issues, that's what he did. What a dirtbag Don Lemon is. What a dirtbag. He is nothing. Terry Crews, big heart. The truth matters to him. Don Lemon, no heart, no integrity, shameless liar. Just a shame. And I've dealt with shameless liars. I have dealt with shameless liars where you take them, you shove their face in their lie, you rub their face in their lie, and 5 minutes later, they're lying again. They lie. It doesn't bother them. There's no guilt. There's no shame. These are just disgusting people. Well, anyway, thanks for listening to my rant. Please share your opinion. If this offended you, I don't care. If you want to rant and call me names, knock yourself out. I don't care. I stand with Terry. I'm gonna stand on that hill. This is Jim Wall. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Cisco, do we have to leave all our good friends now?
Only until next time, Pancho. Adios, amigos.